Pete Rose recently applied for reinstatement into Major League Baseball. Rose has said that what he wants is to have his name on the ballot so the voters can decide whether or not he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So why should Rose be in the Hall of Fame? Well, he spent 24 years in Major League Baseball, 17 of which as an All-Star. He was the National League Rookie of the Year in 1963, the National League Most Valuable Player in 1973, and the World Series Most Valuable Player in 1975. He is the only player to have played 500 games at 5 different positions: first base, second base, third base, left field, and right field. He played on 3 World Series championship teams. He played on the Cincinnati Reds in 1975 and 1976, and the Philadelphia Phillies in 1980. But the most important reason is that he has the most hits of any major leaguer at 4,256. So what is it that's keeping Rose out of the Hall of Fame? The answer is gambling. We know that when Rose was the manager of the Cincinnati Reds, that he bet on baseball. Worse yet, he bet on the Cincinnati Reds. And gambling is a huge taboo with Major League Baseball. Gambling creates the incentive to alter the outcome of a game, thereby damaging the integrity of the sport. Major League Baseball has always dealt harshly with those players it has found colluding with gamblers. In the first year of the National League, 1876, George Bechtel of the Philadelphia Athletics was thought to have been playing suspiciously in the early part of the season and was suspended. During his suspension, he sent a telegram to pitcher Jim Devlin and told Devlin that he could earn $500 just by throwing a single game. For this, Bechtel was banned for life and was never reinstated. In 1877, 4 members of the Louisville Grays were caught colluding with gamblers in order to throw games. This included pitcher Jim Devlin, power hitter George Hall, Al Nichols, and Bill Craver. All were suspended for life and never reinstated. And then there's the most infamous of the baseball scandals, the 1919 Black Sox scandal. 8 Black Sox were suspended for life for colluding to throw the World Series, including Shoeless Joe Jackson and Buck Weaver. This is despite the fact that while Weaver said that he attended meetings with the gamblers, he never took money and never did anything to throw any of the World Series games. Nonetheless, Commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis found that Weaver had a duty to report the action to somebody in order to stop it. But none of these players were actually suspended for betting on baseball games. They were suspended for throwing baseball games. While we know that Rose bet on baseball games, at this point there's no evidence that Rose threw any baseball games or that he bet against the Cincinnati Reds. In fact, there have been other times when the integrity of the sport has been damaged, but baseball took no disciplinary action against the players or managers involved. In 1910, for example, Ty Cobb thought that he had won the batting championship and sat out the last game of the season. The closest competitor was the popular Nap Lajoie of Cleveland. On the last day of the season, Cleveland had a doubleheader with the St. Louis Browns. Lajoie noticed that third baseman Red Carter was playing well behind the bag. The result was that Lajoie bunted for 6 base hits and had a total of 8 base hits in 9 at-bats. It was later learned that the manager of the Browns, John O'Connor, detested Ty Cobb, and for that reason had ordered his third baseman to play that far behind third base in order to give Lajoie the opportunity to get that many hits and possibly take the batting championship away from Cobb. In the end, Cobb still beat out Lajoie by less than 1,000th of a percentage. Chalmers Auto had promised to give away a car to the winner of the batting title that year, and reveled in the attention it was getting because of the shenanigans. For this reason, Chalmers actually gave away 2 cars that year, one to Cobb and one to Lajoie. Neither O'Connor nor Corridor were disciplined by baseball. In 1917, the Chicago White Sox found itself in a heated battle for the pennant for the American League. It had a 4-game series against Detroit. The White Sox lit up the Tigers' pitching and won all 4 games. When the series was over, the White Sox players took a pool to give to the Tigers pitchers, including Eddie Collins, who was known as Mr. Clean. And while there were rumors of collusion, there was no investigation and no discipline. In 1919, it appears that the White Sox returned the favor. This time, the White Sox had sewn up the pennant and found themselves playing Detroit again. In those days, if a team ended the season in the first division or among the first four in the standings, the team received a monetary bonus. The rumors were that the White Sox allowed themselves to get swept by the Tigers in order to allow the Tigers to be in the first division and claim that bonus at the end of the season. Again, there was no discipline. But this selective morality among Major League Baseball can be easily seen in the legends who are enshrined in the Hall of Fame. Cap Anson, for example, is celebrated as the first superstar of the sport when he played for the National League Chicago White Sox in the 19th century. But Anson was a known racist. He refused to let his White Sox play whenever the opposing team had an African American playing. Indeed, Anson's attitude towards African Americans is what led to both the National League and the American Association banning African Americans from playing on baseball teams until 1947, when Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. But Anson was not only guilty of bigotry, he also bet on his own Chicago White Sox when he was the manager. Yet Anson's plaque is in the Hall of Fame. Ed Delahanty had a known addiction both to alcohol and to horse race gambling. Indeed, his addiction led to financial problems both for him and his family. In fact, his addiction to alcohol led to him being thrown off a train before it crossed over Niagara Falls, and when he tried to follow the train, he plunged into the Niagara River and to his death through the falls. Yet Ed Delahanty is in the Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame pitcher Grover Cleveland Alexander is rumored to have played better drunk than sober. In fact, in 1926, he mowed down the Yankees in the last inning of the last game of the World Series, despite the fact that he was severely hungover from a drinking binge the night before. And then there's Denny McLain, who was convicted of racketeering, yet remains in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Baseball's selective morality is most evident when it comes to drug abuse. Arguably, performance-enhancing drugs is far more dangerous to the integrity of the sport than gambling. A host of Major League records, mostly surrounding home runs, are tainted with steroid abuse. But unlike those who get involved in gambling, those who get involved in drug abuse have an opportunity to rehabilitate themselves. So after getting caught, players like Alex Rodriguez and Ryan Braun get an opportunity, after serving a suspension, to come back to the game. But there is no such opportunity to rehabilitate a player after the player has been caught gambling. This is despite the fact that along with drug addiction, just like drug addiction, gambling addiction is a recognized disorder. But baseball's selective morality is even worse. And that is because there are at least two players who were able to rehabilitate themselves and gain reinstatement after a lifetime ban that was connected to gambling. Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays were both hired by Atlantic City casinos to be greeters and to sign autographs for the people who came to the casinos. For that, they were given a lifetime ban. Yet in 1985, the ban was lifted and both Mays and Mantle were reinstated into baseball. Which raises the question, why is Rose being treated so differently? Some say it's because of his harsh personality and the fact that he has been arrogant enough not to give a good enough apology. But the Hall of Fame is filled with people who had personality problems. Very few people, for example, could stand Ty Cobb when he was alive. Yet Ty Cobb remains in the Hall of Fame. And this is not to excuse Rose for what he has done. Certainly punishment was in order. But Rose has served a 25-year suspension from baseball already. He also serves 5 months in jail for tax evasion. The point that many Pete Rose fans make is not that he is to be condoned for what he has done, but rather that he has served enough punishment, and the time has come to allow Pete Rose to take his place as one of the legends of baseball and to give him the opportunity to be elected to the Hall of Fame. Now, there are those who say, hey, Rose's records already are at the Hall of Fame. Certainly it is true that the Hall of Fame Museum does not shy away from Pete Rose and his contributions to baseball. There are several Pete Rose artifacts in the Hall of Fame Museum. There is also a display celebrating his hit record. But having artifacts in the museum portion of the Hall of Fame is not the same as having a plaque in the Hall of Fame itself. Mitch Williams, for example, had his baseball bat in the Hall of Fame for some time. However, while Williams was a frightening presence on the mound, few would argue today that Williams is among the legends of baseball. So yes, Pete Rose is a flawed man. He did something that damaged the reputation of baseball, and for that he should have been punished. But the fact is, he served his punishment, and now is the time for baseball to lift the ban on Pete Rose and allow him to be on the ballot so the voters can decide whether or not he deserves to be among the legends of baseball in the Hall of Fame.